I teased going into the break, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek was on the podcast, I guess, with Shannon Sharpe, talking about one of the reasons he wanted out of Kansas City, and it had to do with how many targets he was getting. Watch this video real quick.
And it would be some games where, like, I get 2 targets, I get 3 targets, and we'll go into meetings, and my coach would be like, "Hey, we got to get you involved. We got to get you involved." And I'm like,
"Nah, y'all need to get me involved yesterday. Don't tell me about it today."
Exactly. Like, you know how to, like, you know the feeling. So I'm calling my agent every week after they say some crazy stuff like that. Like, bro, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. So here's the problem with what he said there, and the lack of fact checking when you in the interview there, because it almost never happened. You know, his accusation that there were multiple games in which he was only targeted 2 times or 3 times, and he would call his agent during the season, "How come I'm not getting targeted more?" I've got it right in front of me. Here's his targets game by game his last year in Kansas City, right? 15, 4, 7, 12, 13, 12, 9, 18, 11, 10, and on and on and on. If you look at his entire season last year in Kansas City, there were only 2 games, and they were in the last 3 weeks of the season as they're getting ready for the playoffs, where he had 2 targets or 3 targets. He's making it up. His amount of targets had nothing at all to do with why he ultimately got traded out of Kansas City. And remember, first he was going to be traded to the Jets. He said no. He wanted to go to Miami. I guess he has a home there. All within his rights if you're going to be traded. Not an issue. But let's not reinvent what happened while you were in Kansas City. And beyond that, if you compare last year in Kansas City with this year thus far in Miami, it's about a half a target per game different. So if you didn't like Coach Reed anymore, fine. If you didn't like the system anymore, fine. If you wanted 30 targets a game, fine. But you're telling a bold-faced lie, and nobody called them on it. Targets weren't a problem.
Yeah, when I heard this, I tried to kind of understand, because I've been there where it's like, man, I'm not getting targets, but it wasn't that I wasn't getting enough targets throughout the course of the year. It was just the specific games. You hear that talk. What he did mention was, a coach comes in and they say, "We got to get you more involved." Don't tell me that week after week.
Right.
That was the case for me at times in Green Bay because we had so many guys. Well, when you have so many guys, you kind of understand that that's the way it's going to be. The Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey's going to be involved.
That's right.
You have McCole Harmon. You have other guys that were going to get featured. And so for him to say that publicly, it's kind of like, what is he talking about?
And the weird thing about it, Greg, is that, yes, you have multiple weapons, and Mahomes has always made a point, especially this year, that he's going to find whoever's open.
Yep.
He's not going to play favorites. That being said, Kelsey's clearly a security blanket, and there are guys like that. But I'm looking at the numbers. The numbers don't coincide with what Tyreek Hill's complaining about. And if you're interviewing him, you should have brought it up.
Look,
like it should have been, wait a minute, big guy, 15, 12, 13, 12, 9, 18, 11, 10, 13, 10. In which game were you upset that you didn't get enough targets because you got damn near double digits in every game?
Well, here's the reality.
What are we talking about?
Like when there's a breakup or a divorce, if you will, it's never really, everybody wants to appear that, we mutually agree. Mm-hmm. That's hardly ever the case, like especially in sport. Like Tyreek Hill is no longer a Chief. He doesn't care what the Chiefs are doing.
Apparently he does.
No, he doesn't care what the Chiefs are doing now. He cared only most of what the Chiefs were doing as far as success if he was a part of it. And that's just the nature of playmakers wanting to be heavily involved. He would have no issue. Even right now, with the numbers that he's putting up, even I believe if Miami Dolphins weren't winning, because he's being
cures
featured.
Everything. But to be fair, last year in Kansas City was also a career high for him in targets.
Yes,
it was the most he was targeted his entire career.
Yeah.
And then listen, here's the reality: the trade worked out for both of them. Kansas City hasn't missed a beat. You know, they are, if not the best, the second best team in the AFC. They're going to make a run, we all believe, towards the Super Bowl again, right? Miami's got a high-powered offense, not the last 2 weeks, but prior to that, he may lead the league in every offensive category for a wide receiver this year. So it's worked out. And by the way, when they did trade him, they had a deal in place for him to go to the Jets. And he said, I'd rather not go to New York. I'd rather go to Miami. And they made that happen. You would think for a guy that won a Super Bowl, went to another Super Bowl, and really had his greatest career success prior to this year, obviously, only played for one team, that you look back on your time there fondly. Like, they didn't mistreat you. They paid you well. They targeted you well. And they said yes when you asked to be traded to a particular team over another team. How about just say thank you?
Yeah, and it's hard when you've had
either way.
When you've
I don't
had
care
issues.
what you think you're entitled to. Sorry.
It's hard when you're in a position of Tyreek when an organization has treated you the way that we all view that they treated him. Even with some of the off the field issues, they never were against him. They always supported him. They always protected him. That's who the organization is. And when you look at his targets, like last year, to get almost 10 targets a game on average, like it was like 9 something.
Yeah, they're so mean to him, so rude. They ignore him so often.
And again, the league has changed, but I never came anywhere close to that.
I bet you didn't. It's probably,
Nowhere
probably
close
about
to that.
half that in your career, right? All right, real quick. Dolphins have a huge game this Sunday against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. As you might imagine, the weather ain't going to be good in Buffalo.
No.
We're talking a couple inches of snow. We're talking 15-mile-per-hour winds. We're talking wind chills well under freezing. Mike McDaniel was asked, is the weather going to be a factor? And listen, if they brought heat warmers with them to L.A. to play the Chargers on Sunday night, which they did, and it was mid-50s at kickoff, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of generators and heaters they're bringing with them to Buffalo. But I should point this out because this game means a lot to the Chargers, to the Jets, you know, the AFC teams that are on that playoff bubble. It's going to be 25 degrees. 15-mile-per-hour winds, like I said, 1 to 3 inches of snow, which is nothing, obviously, in Buffalo. The Dolphins have played a single game this year under 40 at kickoff. They've lost 7 straight games when it's under 40 degrees. They are 6-14 in the last 30 years in Buffalo in the months of November, December, and January. They've lost 6 of their last 7 in Buffalo in November or later. And they've lost 9 of their last 10 overall in Buffalo. If you're a Jet fan,
so you're saying there's a chance.
It's crazy.
I'm going to just tell you from experience. Like, I don't care what Mike McDaniel says about you getting used to it. You do not get used to it. You learn to tolerate it.
Okay.
I played in Green Bay.
Yeah.
I hated it. We would play the Bears, their outdoor stadium up north, whatever. Like, we would travel. We would try to find everything. Scuba gloves, X-Bionic gear underneath our uniforms, leggings, Vaseline. We tried it all.
Did you ever put a suntan lotion on your skin prior to getting dressed?
Some guys did that. Yep.
So
none of it worked.
Hey there, thank you so much for watching The Carton Show. You can subscribe right here to get all the latest bits and segments from the show. And by the way, while you're at it, we have a lot of great shows on FS1, so check them out too.